For a country with an $886 billion defense budget, the United States still uses a sizable amount of old gear. Some of the antiquated equipment is around because it works really well and there hasn't come along anything better to replace it with. In other cases, attempts to replace the equipment have floundered, usually due to reasons related to complexity or cost. We dug up 10 examples that rank among the oldest still in action, from venerable aircraft like the B-52 bomber to the stalwart C-5 Galaxy transport. Despite their age, continuous upgrades keep them relevant for defense strategies. 10. Lockheed C-5 Galaxy. The C-5 Galaxy is known worldwide for its carrying capacity and remains the largest military transport aircraft in the U.S. Air Force fleet. First entering service in the early 1970s, the U.S. Air Force currently owns and operates 52 of these aircraft. With a cargo load of 281,001 pounds, it can fly 2,150 nautical miles, offload, and fly to a second base 500 nautical miles away from the original destination, all without aerial refueling. With aerial refueling, the aircraft's range is limited only by crew endurance. The plane has been flying for over 50 years and continues to play an essential role in strategic airlift operations. The C-5M Super Galaxy is an upgraded version with new engines and modernized avionics, specifically designed to extend the aircraft's service life to 2040 and beyond. 9. Grumman C-2 Greyhound. The Northrop Grumman-built C-2 Greyhound took its maiden flight on November 18, 1964, and entered service with the U.S. Navy in 1966. With the primary mission of transporting high-priority cargo, critical aircraft parts, and passengers to deployed carrier strike groups, the C-2 Greyhound provides critical logistics support. Currently, there are a total of 15 C-2 Greyhounds still in service to support logistics and personnel transfers on the east and west coasts, as well as deployed aircraft carriers in U.S. 5th and 7th Fleets, said Commander Beth Teach, a spokeswoman for the Commander of Naval Air Forces. However, their lifespan is limited as the Navy plans to retire all Greyhounds by 2026 and replace them with CMV-22B Osprey. Eight. Hughes OH-6 Cayuse. First flown in February 1963, the OH-6A Cayuse entered service in September 1966, establishing 23 world records for speed, distance, and altitude. The Cayuse was Hughes' longest-running helicopter program, and during the Vietnam War, as many as 100 of these helicopters were built in a month. Initially called Loach, an adaptation of its acronym, it was officially named Cayuse. It was also known as the Flying Egg, and when equipped for combat, the helicopters were referred to as killer eggs. The modern-day OH-6 variants flown by the U.S. Army Special Operations Forces are known as the MH-6 Little Bird, which is still in service today. 7. Northrop Grumman E-2 Hawkeye. Built by Northrop Grumman, the E-2 Hawkeye is the Navy's all-weather carrier-based tactical battle management airborne early warning, command, and control aircraft. The E-2 is a twin-engine, 5-crew member, high-wing turboprop aircraft with a 24-foot diameter radar rotodome attached to the upper fuselage. The E-2 Hawkeye has many nicknames. It's often called the Super Fud because it replaced the Willy Fud, and has also commonly been referred to as the Hummer because of the unique sounds of its turboprop engines. Designed in the 1950s, the E-2 took its maiden flight in 1960 and entered service in 1964. Over 400 aircraft across all variants have been built, and today, remarkably, the E-2 remains in production with the latest E-2D variant. The U.S. Navy currently has no plans to replace the current E-2D Advanced Hawkeye. Any potential future replacement for the Hawkeye is not expected until after 2040. Six. Boeing CH-47 Chinook. For more than 60 years since entering service in 1962, Chinooks have served as the Army's heavy lift helicopter, whether flown in harsh combat conditions, transporting loads of cargo and troops, or conducting humanitarian missions. The Chinook has made a career of doing the unthinkable. It's huge, quick, and reasonably durable, capable of reaching a maximum speed of 196 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest helicopters in the U.S. inventory. Made by the Boeing company, the CH-47s have been upgraded over the years and are expected to remain in service with the Army for decades to come. There's no doubt in my mind that the Chinook will be at least a 100-year-old aircraft, said Patrick Surface, Boeing's senior manager of H-47 Chinook business development. It will continue operating and performing for the United States and its allies well beyond 2060. Bell UH-1 Iroquois. The Bell UH-1 Iroquois, affectionately known as the Huey, is one of the world's most iconic helicopters, famous for its extensive role in the Vietnam War and distinctive sound. Bell developed the powerful helicopter in the mid-1950s and produced more than 16,000 units between 1955 and 1976, over 7,000 of which served in Vietnam. It entered service with the U.S. Army in 1959. The aircraft were used primarily for troop and cargo transport, medical evacuations, and aerial attacks. The final UH-1 was officially retired from U.S. military service in 2016. However, there are reports of the U.S. military still using newer versions of the chopper to this day. Technically, there are 3 versions of the Huey still flying: the UH-1N Huey, which is in service with the U.S. Air Force, the UH-1Y Venom, and the AH-1Z Viper, both of which serve with the Marine Corps. These aircraft have undergone significant updates from their initial production models, but are expected to remain in service with the Marines for years to come. 4. Boeing KC-135. The Boeing KC-135 Stratotanker is a military asset that served as the backbone of the U.S. Air Force's aerial refueling fleet for over 6 decades. It's a versatile aircraft that plays a crucial role in extending the operational range of military jets, enabling them to conduct long-range missions without the need for frequent refueling stops. The KC-135 Stratotanker was equipped with aerial refueling booms and enough internal fuel storage to transfer up to 200,000 pounds of fuel, enough to fully refuel more than 15 F-16 Fighting Falcons equipped with 2 external fuel tanks. According to the KC-135 fact sheet, the Air Force still maintains nearly 400 Stratotankers as part of the U.S. Air Force inventory. The KC-135 entered service in June 1957. Now, it's hard to believe that this aircraft has been flying for almost 70 years and is projected to fly until it reaches close to 100 years old. 3. Lockheed C-130 Hercules. As the C-130 prepares to embark on its 8th decade of service, retirement seems nowhere in sight, so expect the cargo aircraft to fly for decades still. Quietly but surely, the C-130 has become worthy of its namesake. It's a legend in military aviation circles. The C-130 entered service with the U.S. in 1956, followed by Australia and many other nations. Throughout its years of service, the Hercules has participated in numerous military, civilian, and humanitarian aid operations. The C-130 is the longest continuously produced military aircraft with a production span of more than 60 years. According to Lockheed Martin, to date, more than 2,500 C-130s have been ordered and/or delivered to 63 nations around the world. 70 countries operate C-130s, which have been produced in more than 70 different variants. 2. Lockheed U-2. The U-2 is a high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft capable of flying at 70,000 feet over a target with roughly a 1,700-mile operational radius. The aircraft first entered service in 1956 and later performed flyovers of the Soviet Union, generating a trove of valuable intelligence for the Department of Defense. However, the Soviets eventually shot one down with surface-to-air missiles in 1960, effectively ending the flyovers. Despite this incident, the platform continued to serve the Central Intelligence Agency. Over the years, various upgrades have been incorporated into the U-2 to maintain its competitive edge. In 2020, the entire U-2 fleet of the Air Force was outfitted with electro-optical reconnaissance system sensors. The Air Force currently houses its 27 U-2s at Beale Air Force Base in California, which rotate through military installations worldwide. 1. Boeing B-52 Stratofortress. Designed and built by Boeing in the early stages of the Cold War, the B-52 was developed to be a long-range bomber capable of carrying out the strategic mission without dependence on advanced and intermediate bases controlled by other countries. With its impressive capacity, the bomber can carry up to 70,000 pounds of weapons payload and is equipped with versatile capabilities to deliver munitions across diverse target ranges. The Stratofortress took its maiden flight in April 1952 and entered service less than 3 years later, in February 1955. Due to its massive size, its length is 159 feet 4 inches, and it has a wingspan of 185 feet. And the fact that it can't be described as a handsome aircraft, it quickly earned the nickname Buff, Big, Ugly, Fat Fella. A total of 744 B-52s were produced in Seattle, Washington, and Wichita, Kansas, culminating in the B-52H model, last delivered in 1962. Currently, there are 76 in the U.S. Air Force's inventory. The B-52, a long-serving aircraft in the U.S. Air Force, has maintained its importance through continuous upgrades. Recently, a significant modernization effort has been initiated, focusing on replacing the original 60s-era Pratt & Whitney TF-33 engines with new Rolls-Royce-made F-130 engines. This $2.6 billion initiative, known as the Commercial Engine Replacement Program, aims to convert the B-52H into the B-52J. The Air Force expects flight tests for the first B-52J to begin in late 2028. This modernization effort is not limited to engine upgrades. The B-52 will also receive new radar systems, communications and navigation equipment, and weapons, ensuring its credibility and capability well into the 2050s.